Let's continue with this. So, in my assertion, lecture 11.5 here, all this is P. What I notice, what I employ of my experience, what I can trust about the facts and figures of COVID, the facts and figures about the riots out of COVID, what urban life means to me, living in Brooklyn, all this is P. Let all this is P. I notice the refrigerator trucks, the morgue trucks for the bodies. I see them. I see the news from quadcopters in Potter's Field of long trench graveyards for those who have died because of COVID and can't be buried. I hear the sirens all day long. So this was a definite. I hear the salute to essential workers at 7 p.m. This was a collective event that gripped the whole population of New York. New York was the epicenter of this in the beginning of the epidemic. There were certain features I could apply from my life to an assertion, a positive deixis, as you see in the chart. It's an implication between all SSP and some SSP. Okay, all SSP. All my experience matched that of what they said of COVID on web sources, journalism, calls to my friend. All New York was in a type of a lockdown. There were trips to essential food stocks, but in a sense, it was a paradigm not experienced before. Certainly, in a global city such as New York, I was around for 911, the attacks. The whole month or two afterward, the city was in a different stance. All city was on high alert. They did not know if there would be anthrax attacks, excuse me, or any other sorts of repeated missile attacks, things like that. We were trying to discover the news as it evolves. But what I'm asking you in your 20 blogs is to start with a personal experience, personal approach to the journalistic sources, and then go to further sort of implications. On the right, once you attend to these, no SSP, the negation of that. You could say this was a big hoax, there was nothing, no SSP. So you account for, with the logical square developed by Aristotle and pretty much moved through history. Certainly there was Islamic philosophers who took this up, Avicenna, Averroes, in the golden age of Islamic scholarship, and then it was reinvented in or re-subscribed to in the 19th century, Fichte, and then the language philosophers, mostly continental language philosophers, ending up in Todorov and Greimas talking about narratives. Is this a contraption for truth? No, it is not. It is a contraption for validity. So if one states P and not P within a statement such as, oh, I saw the bodies, COVID is real, oh, and besides, it's a hoax, that is a contradiction. So with this liberating square of oppositions, you can start to break down your existence and not depend on secondary sources, including academic writing. You can head into cities yourself and see the dynamics of cities, notice them, notice how it is broken down. The square of opposition is an approach to validity, and we're so in need of validity right now because in a global society, it is, without critical skills, often very difficult to parse out what could be structured as propaganda or outright lie or untruth. Certainly under the last administration, Trump, this revolved around 2-3 times daily, just sending misinformation out. The square of opposition is a way, just personally, you can break this down. No SSP. Oh man, it's just a hoax. So we have all SSP. It is real. No, it is a hoax, and we should get the hell out of the city. But then look lower right. Those are contraries, contrary opinions. And again, the criticism of the semiotic square over 2,000 years, 2,500 years, is you can fill each predicate position with any sort of data. Yes, you can, but within that, they must, once you enter into the square, they must develop truth values for this complicated predicate calculus, sometimes not so complicated. This is a foundation of language, foundation of mathematics. There is a difficult empirical approach to what you actually plug in. My experience seeing the refrigerator cards is one thing, then hearing certain calls that it's a hoax, to what degree. We are animals that must extrapolate values from facts. That's simply the nature of morality, that we have to sooner or later act. Many great philosophers, such as Immanuel Kant, Schopenhauer to the greater or lesser degree, Spinoza, certainly Nietzsche broke this down in a very aphoristic way. And for centuries, we've been not struggling, but awoken to the fact that we must act out of what we consider facts and develop values from that, not just judgment. When we enter the internet culture, we feel we can merely judge, but these are implications. Okay, so all SSP, no SSP, some SSP, the non-negation. So that would be a negation of like, no, it is not a hoax. Some SSP. Some of this stuff is real. So on the lower left position, we see a neutral term saying, okay, there's a degree of that isn't a hoax. So it's not all SSP in a complete assertion. Wow, COVID is real. I've seen it. Empirically, I'm going to establish the opinion of that. Most interesting position is the lower right. Some S is not P. And if you have studied symbolic logic and so forth, this is a ground position, not a figure position, as you can see. It's in the negative deixis. It is a contradictory to all COVID is, all scenes of COVID are real. Some scenes of COVID are not real, is the implication of P. Here we get into the dynamic of praxis and action. How are we going to act upon it? This contradictory position. All citizens extrapolate values from their personal experiences. One could say this of the rioters on the Capitol steps. They felt so passionately about this that they felt they had to act upon it. Whether they're right or wrong, we can put this within this semiotic square and develop not right or wrong, but contradictory or non-contradictory, valid or invalid logic from the standpoints. Some S is not P is a non-assertion. To what extent did the follow-up of COVID actually help, or the sort of sequential acts that the governor, the mayor, the president took to assume leadership was still clouded in values. and not facts. And again, this semiotic square is a way for us to get out of kind of a murk of pure values or someone else's values and talk about valid things. What is to be done? How can we lower the death rate? How can we parse out politicians' statements, healthcare statements, media statements into something that becomes valid? Certainly, there are many opinions of our last president and his use of the spectacle value of what he was trying to further for his personal agenda, apart from politics. Was he a libertarian? Was he a fascist? Was he... people tend to make judgments. There's a wonderful quote by Jung that says, thinking is very difficult, therefore most people devolve into mere judgment. Again, this semiotic square is a way to arise out of this world of merely judging. Let's see how much time we have. All right, let's just assume the time is hip. Let's go on to what happens with things. The long tail is a working out of reality, such as post-peak oil, such as an interest in a website, such as an interest in a partner. There's this long tail that becomes less intense through time. It's only natural. It might be the second law of thermodynamics. It might be any amount of activities, passions, actions, but it tends to taper off. The black swan is something that comes out of nowhere and affects everything. Two very familiar black swan events were 9/11, came out of nowhere one Tuesday afternoon, beautiful day, and changed everything. Caused for probably the extrapolation of facts, values from the facts of the terrorist attack. But it was a spectacle level of terrorist attack, very epoch shifting. Perhaps it signaled the end of the 20th century in some interpretive way. And we were definitely in a different place. Black swan refers to the finding of black swans in Australia after a society assumes there's only such a thing as white swans. Came out of nowhere, changed our whole opinion of swans. The tipping point, that to which things change, that to which we know something might happen, but we don't know the tipping point. One of the most salient tipping points as it exists now is our upper population level. We are approaching 9 billion people. The resulting environmental degradation and material degradation is obvious. Perhaps this COVID is symptomatic of coming out of a global society interlinked and hugely populated. We see that compared to the Spanish flu, which lasted over 2 years at the end of World War I. So there were vast migrations, but I think the figure is at least 40 times the mobility in our society compared to 1918, 1919, that this is another fact. These factors we work in, and we tend to mine these facts that develop in our lives from these points. The long tail, famously, the internet is our place to mine the long tail. We go on Amazon looking for that thing at the lowest price. It's incorporating the power law, the long tail, for consumer items, for effects, for love and dating, for social media, for everything exists in the long tail until we mine it and work it out. The black swan comes out of nowhere like COVID-19. The tipping point we will continue to experience as the structural upper levels reach their crescendos. I've included my little thing of maximizing and satisficing, that within these phenomena we tend to mine it now with both the internet and with cities. We live in cities to have multiple choices on everything, including food, luxury items, people we meet, people we know, people to have as spouses, babies, people to date, people to socially be engaged with in the analog, and also maximizing events in a city using things such as reputation systems, the restaurant reviews, the product reviews, the person reviews, the amount of likes. This creates these maximizing events. The orange, pinkish, vertical, horizontal oval. The green one is go. It is satisficing. What are we doing from this? What are we doing with the tipping point of 9 billion people? What are we doing within the events such as COVID or 911? What are we doing within the long tail? These are very oppositional effects, and we tend to maximize. I forget, there's a number of rating systems of restaurants. I forget the bigger ones now. Certainly in New York, a very analog town, there are a number of restaurant reviewer systems. We go and watch reviews of movies and movie database systems. We say we don't want to waste our time, yet we go to the rating people looking for exactly their either group validity or individual critical validity. Okay. This is the sociology of space in the long tail. We satisfice or maximize. We use cities to gain a degree of freedom in the city, looking for certain things and so forth. Modernity is pure consumerism. This is assertion. I'm using the semiotic square. I'm breaking it down in a hopefully valid argument, starting from positions of personal experience. And this is truly individual, unique, and even creative thinking in a world of academia where we're supposed to reference footnotes endlessly to come to some free-thinking opinion, intellectual individuality to come to a decision on what, especially in an era where we have no paradigms such as COVID-19 and the internet. The online tools of neoliberal dehumanism, economy, overcome distance, identity, chance, etc. That is what I notice about cities, the internet, what happened during COVID, things like that. The opposite, modernity, is pure individuality. The irony of use of AI and mining the power law of the long tail. To establish what? Question mark. Perhaps to establish, Bauman called this liquid modernity. Many people call it snowflake modernity. This idea that the individual triumphs apart from the phenomena experienced communally. The individual triumphs and should be held up as the apogee of where a society goes to. Your style is your own, to each his own. Doesn't matter how it impacts the rest of the population, just do it. The irony to this is that AI is mining this and actually using this to a greater or lesser extent. The non-negation is modernity is pure state, a fascist exclusivity, socialist centrality. Okay, so within this, we have our little maximizing, satisficing choices in the long tail. We can say, this eBay product I like. I'm going to use it. It arrives, it's great use. We spend our money, it's delivered by UPS or whatever. I got it, I use it. I'm supposed to feel fully aware of this. The maximizing aspect is, I'm not quite satisfied with this thing. What Berardi and a lot of the post-Marxist writers are saying, we've entered a society that doesn't trust our judgments, is always financializing and commoditizing everything. And certainly this can be backed up with data now that we have every keystroke, every like, every purchase recorded and placed within the AI. So we have these difficult assumptions that we make between maximizing and satisficing within the long curve. Pure modernity. Okay, so what is modernism? Modernity as pure consumerism, modernity as pure individuality, modernity as a pure state, what the government wants, a collective, which is a non-negation, or the bureaucracies resembling socialist centralities, reducing down what worked in the past. Or modernity as a construct of love and future self and analog experience, and as passion and compassion and empathy, everything that involves the analog body. Berardi, amongst others, Deleuze and Guattari, are trying to, and certainly Virilio, the architect theorists, the French situationist school, warned against pure floating signifiers, pure commodity selves with prices. But somehow the analog, the body and its mysterious desires are analog and therefore must exist outside of this realm of financialization. It does not look so good for that direction. Here's maximizing, satisficing over time, how we apply it, how we choose things within the internet, how we choose to react to the COVID-19 within our cities, whether you're rural or suburban or urban. You chose your direction with there. The disheartening fact is, from Kevin Kelly using this notion of the Google search in place of this semiotic square, the square of opposition, in place of a Socratic dialogue, that, might as well search it. These are very disappointing times when the answers are much important than the questions. But can we live in the realm of the questions if we exist in a society that needs praxis, that we do need to get beyond facts and values, and we need to go into action, determining what is best for reducing the impact of COVID-19. To be continued.